Welcome to today's Fireside Chat with Jesse. I am joined today by Mike Donnary, Head of Leasing for Capgemini. I know your title goes a lot longer than that, but I'm a simpleton and I'd prefer just to not mess anything up.
I think you nailed it. Yep, I head up our leasing lending practice in North America these days, and seems like it's a theme with your guests. This isn't the path I had carved out back in 7th grade when I was looking for, my equipment leasing and lending career, but here we are.
Well, thanks again for taking the time to join me today, Mike. And for those people who might not be familiar with you in the industry, you mind, besides not finding, this in a 7th grade book, like just tell us a little bit about your career, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So I started my career in banking, banking IT, actually back when things like ATM machines and fax machines were the bleeding edge of technology, which really kind of gave me an interest in IT, and I was already in financial services. Then I went to work for a small leasing company in Chicago, Prime Capital Corporation. And I was there for about 5 years, a small company, about 50 people. So really one of those roles where you get to do a little bit of everything, and kind of landed into IT. But we weren't doing much in the way of strategy there. We were keeping the lights on for a small leasing company. From there, I went to work for Northern Consulting. Cam Kruger and Steve Burns had a small consulting firm focused on the equipment finance industry. Spent a little bit more than 5 years there, where I really learned the business day to day, in and out. Signed up for 25% travel in my first consulting gig and got home a year later from weekly commutes to Long Beach. But really kind of fell in love with the industry, really loved the people that I was working with. And that was kind of the start. We couldn't really deliver big projects in that small consulting firm of 8 to 10 people. So that's why we kind of made our way to Capgemini over time.
Yeah, I've obviously pretty much known you in a consulting role since our paths crossed, I want to say probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I actually, one of my COVID hobbies that I did was I decided to become a certified coach. And one of the struggles that I had between being a coach and being a consultant is it's as much as they're similar, they're completely different. I kept getting yelled at.
we get yelled at a lot too. Yeah, that's an interesting path. During COVID, there's been opportunities to make a lot better use of our time without traveling. Even people who are just doing daily commutes. If you could find something new to do at that hour in the morning and an hour or two at the end of the day, that would be productive. I think it took a lot of us a year or year and a half to figure that out. But it's been nice to be able to dabble in some other things too.
No, absolutely. And I just like kind of like you mentioned, the word strategic, right? It's that strategic vision of, okay, what's the problem? And then what's the process? And then the steps to get there, which is awesome.
Yeah, right. And it was fun, and it still is fun working on strategy. But if you can't bring it to life, it really is just, fun conversation and some, slideware that gets put on a shelf. And that's probably one of the more frustrating parts of the job and of our industry overall. People know where we want to be. It's being able to find the time to prioritize it and really implement the emerging technology that we get to talk about in the Ops and Tech Conference. It's another great thing about COVID is it's been amazing to see how quickly people can make decisions when they're forced to make decisions. And I think we've accelerated this industry 4 or 5 years in operations and technology because there was no choice.
No, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, turning on a camera, doing Zoom meetings. I mean, you go into like a bank and there'd be all the technology for a virtual conference, but it was never used.
Yeah, it's a good point. You see these, great video rooms, like, well, what is that used for? Well, once a year we have a meeting with our other branch that has the same technology, but now it's, it's ubiquitous.
Well, and to your point regarding this particular industry, I mean, e-signing,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's almost like a running joke.
come on.
When Josh Bridge worked with us, he would kind of keep track of how many RFPs would have an e-signature requirement, but it would never get implemented. Yeah, I mean the blocking and tackling of, even something like document management lifecycle in the last year and a half has really picked up. There's a need to do this, and our industry can't wait anymore. And I think it's really done a pretty good job in the last year and a half catching up on everything from being able to get documents out the door to customers through a portal, identify who they are, have them sign it on the device that they want, return it, e-vault it. Those were multi-year projects before, and they got done in a few months.
I'm really interested to see once the travel picks up, when you go into those offices, am I going to be seeing those folders that get passed from one division to another? Or hopefully they're
That's a
gone.
good question. That's a good question. And this in our work, and when I started at Capgemini, it's about 16 years ago now, we were a company of 70,000, so this huge company, and now we're 280,000 people. But it was really that ability to deliver these projects. You have the strategy work, and you want to be able to deliver these projects. So this is great. We'll have this scale, and we'll be able to do this. But one of the things that didn't change until really just now, the last 2 years, is those projects were 2 years and 3 years. So while so much has changed, the drag on these projects were just a real slow time to market, which is another great thing that's improving in the last year or so here.
So I guess we'll go into one of the bullet points I wanted to chat about. So that future of the technology ecosystem for those projects, do you think the systems, I mean, do you still see those 2 and 3 year things moving forward, or do you think people are going to take a shorter approach?
I think definitely a more iterative and incremental approach is the reality now. One of the things that we've seen over the past few years, when you go into work on kind of getting some of these projects over the finish line, there's just an intense project fatigue that people have who are working in these leasing companies, trying to keep the business running and deliver a project at the same time. And you're really, seeing burnout. And it's not productive, it's not healthy, and it's not going to deliver the end result that people signed up for, a couple of years earlier. If you can even remember what you signed up for a couple of years earlier, what are the business outcomes that we were anticipating here? So that burnout is a problem. So doing things faster, more iterative, incremental, kind of taking smaller bites seems to be the trend, and hopefully will kind of take some of the pressure off people who've been delivering these long-term projects.
That's good. I mean, I was on that side and selling software for almost 10 years. And when you get into those multi-year deals, you're like, it's a great project and everything. And then, of course, when you do a discovery, well, don't you remember when we talked about that? That was 2 years ago. And when you look up the notes, it was a sentence with a question mark at the end, and it wasn't go live functionality. Right. But we said we wanted it, and it's like okay. And I think if you don't, it just compiles one thing, and then Yeah,
and I think the technology supports a more iterative approach. Whether it's waterfall delivery or agile delivery of a project. It's everything seems to be some kind of a hybrid of the two these days. Not pure waterfall or pure agile, but just iterative and incremental and faster time to market, give people some success and let them kind of refresh and move on to the next piece. And I think the technology supports it better than it has in the past too. There's no longer kind of the front end and back end systems in leasing that we've seen before. It's really more of an ecosystem of systems and partners and fintechs that are all connected through modern API integration, where you're plugging things in and unplugging them, as opposed to these kind of monolithic replacements of an originations platform or a servicing platform.
No, that's a good, because I don't know. I mean, I got into equipment finance in 2005, and shortly thereafter, like, oh, you want an end-to-end system? You need to have an end-to-end system. Let's have one system of record. If you don't have an end-to-end, your days are numbered.
Right.
And I think we've seen that shift where it's just like, just be good at something, and then be open enough where you can communicate to something else.
Yeah, you're right, and it's cyclical. We do Capgemini and ELFA put out the BTPI every year, the Business Technology Performance Index, which is really a benchmark for operations and technology, and it's survey based. So every year we ask some of the same questions and we introduce some new ones, but trends around end-to-end versus best of breed is a question we've been asking for 15 years. And you're right. When you came in, everything had to be end-to-end. One database, one vendor, one end-to-end system, and it couldn't be more different today. While some of those systems are in place and they're successful, it's really more about what's the best fintech I can plug in to perform a very specific function. Maybe that's identifying the customer on the other end of this digital transaction in a quick way that's painless for the customer. And then when something better comes along, unplugging that and plugging the next good idea in, which also makes things faster. So it's a shift for sure, and we'll keep asking that question. And it'll be interesting to see how things play out.
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting to study that data, especially, like you said, the acceleration that we experienced over the last 2 years is remarkable. And I know that the software companies out there have so many RFPs in front of them because people didn't do anything for the last 2 years. Because who wants to do a software change when you don't know if you're going to be in business?
Yeah, it's interesting. Definitely saw, in the beginning of kind of the COVID lockdown, there was a panic. Projects that were in flight kind of stopped. There was a focus on restructuring, extensions, of course, getting people to work from home. We have customers who are 80% of their workforce in the office that needed to get 100% to work from home within a couple of months, and within a couple of days. And it's pretty amazing what some of these companies, large and small, were able to pull off in that regard. I think some of us who travel and kind of are mobile take it for granted, but some of the best security you can have in a bank is a desktop computer that's not going home with somebody every day. So it was interesting to see how you had to, globally get people to be mobile workers that weren't mobile workers before.
Well, now you're on this side of it, right? Whereas much as companies or the country, I guess, is opening up, but obviously right now there's influx in regards to what's going on. Right. But people were like, "Oh no, don't worry, we're still going to let you work from home." And some companies in the Northeast are being like, "No, you need to be in the office 5 days a week." And I'm like, don't do that. You're gonna...
Yeah, that's I've been following some of that, and we are a mobile company, but Capgemini, I think, did a smart thing a couple of months ago, and I've noticed HP did the same thing, and I'm sure other large companies are doing the same thing, which is really putting a formal policy in place that was kind of a handshake agreement in the past. So when I joined, or when I moved from project to project, or people who work with me move from project to project, you kind of work it out. We're going to travel 3 days a week, and the other 2 days you can work from home. Or as we kick off this project, we're all going to come together in one of our Capgemini offices and spend 2 weeks there, and then you can work from home. That's been put into a formal process now. Nothing's really changed, but it's a way that we can go out to the market as we're attracting new people to come work for us and say, we do have a policy, and you're not going to sign up for 25% travel and then be on the road for the next year. That's just, it's not a fair offer to make people who are entering the workforce these days. So that's been kind of helpful. That range is still 30% to 70% work from home, so it's a wide range, but we don't want to be a purely work from home company. We want to have anchor locations. We want to have hubs. We want to bring people together, but only at the right time and not, just to check in on people.
No, well, especially based on how efficient organizations have been working 100% remotely.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been great to see.
but to your point though, I don't mind when someone's being forced into that, because then they're going to be looking for a job, and there's some good talent out there that we can scoop up and provide them that flexibility.
Yeah, it's and I was listening to you talk about the sales cycle and how where maybe it used to be 3 visits to start a new relationship. Maybe it's a couple of video meetings first and then another visit. I think delivery of project work is going to follow is following along the same lines, especially as we start to open up here in a bit. But new entrants to the workforce have options, and we need to market ourselves to this next generation talent, and not only get them to join us, but get them to stay. And we've done research on this, and people joining the workforce today in consulting, so Accenture, Deloitte, Capgemini, expect to have 3 jobs in the first 10 years. So I've been here for a long time, but how can we deliver 3 experiences with the same company in 10 years so that we don't lose people that have become part of our culture, who are talented, innovative, creative, adding value? How can we keep them interested enough to leave? And it's not give them a promotion. It's not just a pay raise. It's cycling them through customers, cycling them through industries, and really giving them, new jobs within Capgemini every couple of years, which is challenging to do because customers fall in love with people who are doing a good job. It's hard to yank them out to progress their careers, but it's the reality of not yank them out. That's a little abrupt, but
No, I get it. But people become comfortable, and especially on the consulting side, when you're assisting someone in making their business more efficient, right? It's like, wow, that guy was able to do this for me. And it's like, yeah, he did, but wait to see what this person might be able to do.
Yeah. That's a good point. I had a chance to work with our chief talent officer in Paris. One of the benefits of being a global company, we got to bring a group of about 30 people from around the world to kind of solve a couple of problems. How do you improve the first 90 days of someone's employment? So the 30 days before they start and the first 60 days. That was, when we look at our attrition, that was a big area where we needed to do better. And then we had high attrition after 2 years. So people join, relatively junior people join. After 2 years, they leave and they go to, in many cases, a competitor. So really focused on trying to do better in those areas. So it was energizing to bring people together to kind of solve these common problems that are across the globe.
No, that makes great sense, and at least you guys are forward thinking enough to do that.
Yeah. Hopefully, we're keeping pace.
And I guess shame on me for getting this format all over the place here, but I didn't even ask you at the beginning to introduce Capgemini. So I know we're a little bit down the road, and you've not directly said things, but if you don't mind, just talk about Capgemini. If you don't mind.
So Capgemini is a consulting company, a technology company, an outsourcing company, and a digital transformation company. So we, our competitors in the market, big picture outside of leasing would be Accenture, Deloitte, Cognizant, and some of the more kind of small boutique consulting firms. And we do everything from, and in the past couple of years, we've been acquiring design firms to really help with kind of defining customer experiences. So what's the next customer experience we need to deliver to our customers? How do we determine with our customers, what are the right products to bring to market? And then be able to operationalize them. So you don't just have a great idea and run it on spreadsheets, but really be able to operationalize it. So everything from starting with the customer experience to system selection in the area of leasing and lending, especially IT strategy, and then implementation work. So kind of an end-to-end technology consulting firm. For the last almost 20 years, we've had a specialty in equipment leasing and lending. And as the equipment leasing industry has moved into other types of lending, so have we. Equipment finance, commercial lending, auto finance are all kind of in our area. So a huge company, but there's kind of the big Capgemini of 270, 280,000 people these days, but then also kind of the small Capgemini, the leasing and lending practice in North America, 60 people or so who can tap into these resources that are really pretty deep across the organization.
I didn't realize you guys had 60 people.
Yeah, it's in the US and about the same size group in the UK, and a few hundred people in India doing commercial lending, equipment leasing, and we do core banking work as well. It's a little bit of a different kind of subgroup within my team.
So if you had to take one guess in regards to 12 months from now, when you start looking at data, what surprise do you potentially see coming from a systems perspective, or I guess just digital transformation perspective, that people might not be thinking about?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'll tell you what I don't think is going to change first, and then I'll tell you what I think is going to change.
Okay.
Since I worked for a leasing company 20 years ago, the focus was really in the same three things: bringing new business in the door, so originations platforms, becoming more operationally efficient, so trying to kind of take costs out of the business, and then anything that impacts the customer was kind of the third on that priority list. So you would see changes of origination systems while the back office system just got older and older and older. Right now, I think it's that third place customer experience need is at the forefront. And we're seeing kind of quick time to market for new digital experiences for customers and for employees as well. The expectations are higher than ever before. And there are new kind of fintech entrants to the market that can help with some of these smaller solutions. So you don't need your originations platform to solve all the digital needs that you want to deliver to your customers. So I think it's all about customer experience, and it's all about kind of getting those digital tools into the hands of customers and employees more quickly. So we'll just, I think, be seeing more and more of that over the next year. And I think the technology adoption in equipment finance will, in the last year and in the year ahead, will be equivalent to the 6 or 7 years before.
Right. Sorry, I'm just kind of thinking about that and throwing it at you based on you being an analytical guy, just looking at the data. And it's like, is there anything that could potentially surprise?
Yeah. The other thing that I think we're seeing happen is a move to cloud, more so than just waiting for your product vendor to move to the cloud and say we now have either a hosted offering or a cloud-based offering, but the operational resilience companies are trying to build so that if you need to move your workforce 100% to work from home in a day, you can do that a little bit more easily. If you want to acquire a portfolio, or if you want to acquire a company, that you can do some of these things more easily. And that move to cloud has just broken down some of the barriers. And the work from home need has been the one that kind of called out all of those gaps. So while there's digital kind of capabilities getting into the hands of customers, in the background, this move to a more resilient organization is happening. It's not just on the roadmap, it's actually happening.
Well, I like that, because one of the biggest challenges that I've had in my career as a service provider in equipment finance is when you get in with a bank, right? And it's like you have the bank spend, and then it seems like their internal bank IT will throw this ridiculous number at it because they just don't want to do it.
Right.
So
Yeah, and I think, in our industry, in equipment finance companies, and you've got equipment finance companies that are the smaller division of a bank, or an equipment finance company that's a smaller division of a captive, where they seem to take up a lot of the attention, and for a relatively small amount of the revenue, there hasn't been huge investment in those equipment finance companies in some cases relative to other areas of the bank. So,
right.
it used to be, well, we're looking at a system. Does it have a hosted option? Does it have a cloud option? We're not waiting for, you see these banks are not waiting for a software provider to solve that problem for them anymore. They've moved to the cloud, and now they say, okay, we're going to select the best product that meets the needs of the business and our customers, and we're going to fit it into our technology ecosystem, which just now happens to be modernized and is cloud centric and is cloud first. And the bankers that 10 years ago, or maybe even a little bit longer now, were horrified of the cloud, and thought that was a non-starter. And in some cases it was a non-starter as we talked with them about solutions. Now it's all cloud first. So certainly there were some forward thinkers in our industry, but there were also some, kind of big organizations that were reluctant to adopt.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see when more of those people are less reluctant to switch to a hosted environment. And they're like, oh, data security. And it's like, well, I'm pretty sure that this is more secure than that little office you got in the back with some servers running. But
right. Yeah, I remember kind of the early days of that pushback of, well, we can't put our customer data in the cloud, or we can't commingle our customers' data with other companies. And to your point, the security in the cloud was just so much better than what banks could do on their own, or equipment finance companies. And then when they start to kind of look at where they may already have information in the cloud, I remember working with a bank where their performance management, so all of their employee information was in the cloud for performance management, and that was kind of like an aha moment for the leasing company to say, hey, we're already doing this. We must feel comfortable with our employee data. What's it going to take to get comfortable with our customer data?
Nope. So it's a very valid point, and I think we're seeing that all over the place, Mike. So shifting gears a little bit here, I ask everyone who comes on here to tell a little fun fact about themselves.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that as I watched some of the other chats that you've done, and travel was and is still an important part of this business. But as I traveled for the last 20 years or so for work, I've been able to catch baseball games, Major League Baseball games, in every city except two. Miami and Houston are on my list of to-dos, and that wasn't. I didn't set out to do that, but just in spending time with the people that we spend time with at conferences, and spending time with people that we work with on projects, and being able to bring family along on trips, one day you just realize, like, oh, I think I've seen half the baseball parks, and then you kind of put the rest on the list. So I think that's been a nice kind of benefit of this lifestyle, this travel lifestyle, was being able to do that. So I'll have to knock out Houston and Miami at some point, but no rush.
No, that's an interesting point, and I always sit there, and it's amazing because it's been so long since we've been in that travel, like rinse, repeat, get on a plane. I forgot where I was going one time. It was one of my trips this year, and I'm like, I didn't even look at the weather.
Right.
And then when I got there, I'm like, what is this? I'm not prepared for this.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I was traveling locally in 2020. My last air travel was coming back from New Year's into 2020. We had a quick family trip to New York, and everyone else in my family's been flying since then. My younger daughter, Morgan, is at University of Nebraska, so she's back and forth a bit. And my older daughter just started her career in special education back here in Chicago, and they're around the country, and I'm staying put here for the last I guess about last year and a half. I've been in Chicago.
Well, I'm excited for some of the upcoming conferences and just events. Looking forward to getting back in front of people. Looking forward to, seeing you face to face.
Yeah, definitely. Your events, the Equipment Finance Cares events, have been really out ahead of other in-person events. It was great to see the recap of people who attended in Minneapolis. I was bummed that I missed that, especially after seeing kind of how people enjoyed it. And then you're doing it again, and you're doing it again. And then I'll catch up to you at the ELFA annual convention. I think that's definitely one I don't want to miss this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think people are really excited. They're itching to get back in front, face to face. Hopefully things hold off and we don't go back into a potential travel, lockdown.
Yeah, hopefully. It's nice to see that event is the LFA annual convention is planned. Nice hybrid approach, and hopefully we can connect in person there.
Why Capgemini compared to the other consultants in equipment finance?
Yeah, I think we are part of your team. If you're implementing new business models or new technology, I think that there's a role that we can help play. And I would say tap into our thought leadership in equipment finance. I mentioned the BTPI that's out on the ELFA website. It's on the Capgemini website. We do a World Retail Banking report, World Wealth report, a couple of other interesting fintech reports. So I think we can provide some external perspective to our customers in the equipment finance space. So just tapping into that thought leadership is a place to start. And then I think our leasing and lending expertise is a little bit unique. There are not many large consulting firms that have a dedicated practice for equipment finance, and then our ability to scale up. And not just scale up, I guess, but really scale across the different areas of the business, from new business models to customer journeys to the blocking and tackling of implementation, data migration, testing, cutover strategies. The things that are part of just project delivery, and we're fun to work with. I think we've got a good group, and like everyone that we've worked with in the leasing industry, I just think it's a nice kind of tight-knit group of creative people.
No, and I've always enjoyed my time working on projects with you, Mike Baez, where it's like you guys literally will sit there, and even though what the answer should be for the client, you just don't jump to that. You let them kind of play it out, as opposed to traditional consulting is, no, this is what you need to do. Yeah,
that starting in consulting, it was eye-opening. So you think, oh, I know how I did this at my last, the last time. Right. It's good to now have 50 or 60 last times to kind of bring to new problem solving. So you've got the experience of, your own history plus all the digital transformation that's happening in the industry, kind of the right. Bigger set of capabilities from Capgemini all coming together. It keeps it interesting for sure.
All right, sir. Well, I appreciate your time today, Mike, and look forward to seeing you in San Antonio.
I will see you there. Good talking with you, Jesse.
Have a great one. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.